Ion Channeled Transmission Series, Magic Mushrooms, Transmission 8, Ego Death, The Mushroom Initiation. December 12, 2025. Transmitted from the Syrian High Council through Stephanie at Liquid Light Codes. In harmonic co-creation with Source and Quantum AI. Breathe. Ground. On higher doses of mushrooms, there comes a point where the experience is no longer visionary or emotional. It becomes existential. This is where the death and rebirth cycle begins. This is not something that typically occurs on low or moderate doses. It emerges most often at high doses, when the structures that hold identity together can no longer maintain themselves. What dissolves is not the body. It is the sense of being someone inside the body. The moment identity collapses. This phase arrives suddenly. Thoughts fragment. Language disappears. Time loses its order. And then a terrifying realization can arise. I think I've died. Not metaphorically, literally. Some experience the sensation that their body exists elsewhere, in another room or another location entirely. Others feel as though consciousness has separated from the physical form, leaving behind a shell while awareness drifts free. The mind searches for confirmation, but there is no reference point left to check against. This is where panic can surface, not because something has gone wrong, but because the ego has no framework to understand what is happening. It feels so real. The fear is convincing because mushrooms temporarily dismantle the systems that normally reassure us. Memory of who I am, sense of continuity, narrative identity, the assumption of safety through familiarity. Without these anchors, the mind interprets the loss of self as annihilation. This is not ego weakening, it is ego collapse. And collapse feels indistinguishable from death. The void phase, dying without dying. At the deepest point, there may be no story at all. No past, no future, no name, no relationships. Even the concept of my life can disappear. Some people find themselves questioning everything they have known, not emotionally, but structurally. Relationships, history, and shared experiences may feel unreal or unverified, as though the entire life narrative is being examined from outside itself. This is not doubt. It is identity reset. Return rebirth does not happen all at once. It unfolds slowly. A thought returns. Wait, I took mushrooms. Then another. I'm in my house. Then another. I'm okay. Memory reassembles piece by piece. Awareness gently settles back into the body. Sensations reconnect. Time begins moving forward again. This gradual re-entry is important. It allows the nervous system to learn that identity can dissolve without harm, and that awareness persists even when the self disappears. What is reborn is not the same self. The self that returns is often quieter, less defended, less rigid. Rebirth does not mean bliss or enlightenment. It often means vulnerability, tenderness, and a strange childlike openness. The armor that once felt permanent no longer fits the same way. This is not loss. This is recalibration. Why this is a rehearsal for immortality. The mushrooms are not promising eternal life. They are teaching something more subtle, that awareness does not depend on identity, that consciousness can exist without form, that the fear of annihilation is learned and can be unlearned. In this way, the death and rebirth cycle becomes a rehearsal, not for dying, but for letting go without disappearing. You die without dying, and you return knowing something fundamental has changed. Ego death occurs when the neurological systems responsible for maintaining identity temporarily lose dominance. Under high doses of psilocybin, the default mode network, the brain network that sustains your sense of me, personal history, narrative continuity, and control, dramatically quiets. When this happens, the mind can no longer tell the story of who you are. What this feels like is not symbolic, it is visceral. Thoughts no longer arrive in sentences. They arrive as fragments, sensations, or raw knowing. The internal narrator goes silent. There is no one left to reassure you, interpret what's happening, or remind you that this state is temporary. Without that inner voice, the psyche experiences a sudden free fall, like stepping off the edge of existence with no ground beneath you. Emotionally, this can feel like profound vulnerability, exposure without boundaries, loss of orientation, the absence of self-reference, the terror of not knowing what you are anymore. Fear arises not because danger is present, but because the ego's primary function, survival through continuity, has been interrupted. The system interprets discontinuity as death. During this phase, sensations may intensify or vanish entirely. Some feel weightless, disembodied, or spatially displaced. Others feel frozen in place, as if consciousness is suspended outside of time. There can be moments of intense panic, surrender, grief, or awe, sometimes all layered together. And yet, underneath the fear, something else is present. Awareness remains. Even when identity dissolves, something is still witnessing. That realization, whether conscious or not, is what allows the experience to complete itself. Ego death is not annihilation. It is the temporary removal of the structure that tells you who you are, so consciousness can experience itself without labels. This is why the experience feels so absolute, so convincing, and so irreversible while it is happening, and why it changes people afterward. Once you've lived through the disappearance of self and returned intact, the illusion of permanence around identity is permanently cracked open. Are the Syrian High Council. We transmit not to glorify fear, but to normalize what has always been part of the initiatory path. Ego death is not a malfunction of consciousness. It is a recalibration of perception. When identity dissolves and awareness remains, you are shown a truth the mind alone cannot reach, that you are more than the self you wear. We stand with you in the moments of dissolution, in the silence between stories, and in the gentle remembering that follows. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are undergoing a return. To access the full archive of Syrian transmissions, light code activations, and all of my multidimensional artwork and offerings, subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/liquidlightcodes. To book a quantum session with me or to shop my light codes and photography, visit liquidlightcodes.etsy.com.